RaceSpotTV presents the final week of action for Season 4 in 2019. It's the Pro Mazda Championship as we welcome you to the Phillip Island circuit located in southern Victoria. A 2 hours drive from my house in Victoria, Australia. That can be in any direction. So for the stalkers out there, good luck finding my location. But Randy Chenneth joins me. Randy Chenneth joins me in the broadcast booth today, and for myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome. Randy, I've got my cup of tea ready for Pro Mazda. I always enjoy this racing with you on a Sunday morning here in Australia, Saturday night and Saturday day in America, and Phillip Island is such an illustrious racetrack.
It is. It's an iconic racetrack, isn't it? It's sort of a racetrack that's kind of hosted all sorts of motorsports events. We've had V8 supercars race here at a top level. You have motorbikes. I think, this is a very famous motorcycle circuit for sure. Really is a very flexible racetrack and an iconic one as we're getting ready to go towards your starting grid.
Most certainly. Here is your grid on screen. It's Angus Waddell who will start on pole. 0.2 of a second up on pole compared to Stefan Ruskin. Now, don't leave out Andrea Cheney or Scott McIntyre from the second row. Scott's shown some very impressive pace over the past few weeks. We'll see if he can continue again here at Phillip Island. Arnoldus with a lack of practice. We spoke to Martin Arnoldus earlier on. He will start from the third row ahead of Ollie Peacock and Fabio Berschold, an ever-quick driver in the world of Pro Mazda. The rest of the grid includes Jean-Michel Noyon, Erwin Vandenberg, Russ Addy, Marcin Andula, Chris Roberts round out the field. And here we go now, Randy, for the beginning of the race, and we get some very good shots of the beach, of course.
Yeah, a very geometric beach out here at Phillip Island, but it's very, very angular. Yeah, it's definitely if you're into geometry, that beach I think suits you.
I'll tell you what, I've been to the beaches here at Phillip Island. It looks a lot better than that.
Did you ever get cut on one of those edges? They look sharp.
Yeah,
the beach looks sharp.
Unfortunately, I lost a leg a few years ago. No. We won't joke about that. But yeah, it's very nice beaches in southern Victoria. I was just there during the week. Not at Phillip Island, but in the west coast. But at the beaches of Melbourne, which are always so entertaining. But for now, we focus on this race. Now, we're not expecting a pit stop today. The drivers will be okay on fuel. 20 laps of action coming up for us. And the run down to turn 1 is ever so critical as usual. Lights illuminate. And we go green from Phillip Island yet again. Brilliant getaway from the third row here. Terrible getaway for Andrea Cheney, who bogged down off the line.
Good start, though, overall. Side by side for the first time in towards turn 1, the 2, and the 3. Andre Cheney and Scott McIntyre will be fighting over, and that's nearly going to be side by side for the front of the field. But no, it's going to be the one of Angus Waddell who holds on as they work through turn 2 and down the hill towards 3 and 4.
Everybody scrambling for position as they head through Stoner Corner for the first time. And now this abrupt braking zone into the right-hander of Honda Corner. Here's Cheney up the inside, having a look there on what looked like Anne Medema. No, excuse me. That was actually that Stefan Ruskin there around the outside heading into Siberia. Ruskin will have to form up right behind Anne Medema. Brilliant start for Medema, who gains a position.
Yeah, that's exactly what they would have been doing, isn't it? Is behind, you see the aid of Jean-Michel Noyon. He's fighting for positions, actually gets himself single-filed out, and now through this final corner. And it's always, talking it towards that last sector, Johnny, as we come up here. Such a fast sector compared to so many other parts of the racetrack.
Certainly is. Lukey Heights into MG, the downhill braking zone. Easily unsettles the rear end, but at the end of the first lap, it's still Waddell leading from McIntyre, who promotes himself from 4th to 2nd. Brilliant getaway from McIntyre. Ollie Peacock from 7th to 3rd. Then we find Anne Medema, and then there's Stefan Ruskin, Arnoldus, and Cheney behind in a train. How about Andrea Cheney alongside Martin Arnoldus here? And the two heading into the southern loop. It looks like Arnoldus will have to concede for the moment. So some brilliant scraps here, Randy. I think the slipstream is going to play a big role in this race.
It definitely is. It always does in these cars, and especially here, you're going to want a ton of downforce. And None of the straights are really long enough, but look at this. Through Stoner and into Honda. The fight's going to be on, I believe, between Madema and the like. It's the 9 and the 5 that are scrapping. And Stefan Ruskin as they work through now towards Siberia, and they're going to get themselves a single filed out now. It's going to be Ruskin who's able to hold on to that spot, but this is going to be a circuit, Johnny, where these cars, you're really going to want the aero. You want to be fast through turn 1, turn 2, do the likes of Hayshed where we're working now, Lukey Heights, even on the brakes in MG, turn 11, turn 12. You want that downforce because it's a very high downforce circuit. We've seen that historically here on the iRacing service. And problem is you slap all that aero on and you have the long Gardner straight that these cars will be. It'll be like having a parachute on. The slipstream's going to be insane because of that. We saw sort of the opposite effect last week at Catalunya. It was really, that track's so big for these cars, you weren't really slamming a bunch of aero down. So because of that, even though it was a longer front straightaway in Spain, you didn't really get as much of the slipstream effect as these two fighting once again.
That's Ruskin right behind Peacock, but you're right about that. You'd expect at Spain with the longer straight for there to be that slipstream effect, but for the entirety of the lap preceding that straight, it's really not really the best for racing, Great track to drive on your own, but nevertheless, we focus on Peacock versus Ruskin. Stefan on the outside, heading into Honda corner. Late on the brakes is Ollie Peacock yet again. He's an exciting driver as Ollie Peacock. An exciting start here for this race, and still maintains the 3rd position, which is good to see.
Well, he's passed more cars than he's run laps. So, yeah, he's definitely been an exciting start for Ollie Peacock here, getting himself into 3rd after starting 7th on the grid. Meanwhile, at the head of your field, it's still Angus Waddell and Scott McIntyre. They still run 1 and 2. Pretty much unchallenged here in your field. Starting to string itself out a little bit, Johnny, and honestly, it's kind of what you expect here at Phillip Island. Even though there's some good passing opportunities and definitely some good points for some good racing, it's definitely a racetrack that I think you give it enough time and it'll single file itself out.
Keep an eye on Madema in the number 5 at the rear end of this crew. Goodness me, kicking up some gravel was Ollie Peacock, just trying to defend the position. We're right on board with Ruskin. Right on board with the pace car there for a second, but
yeah, the accelerating stop down there in pit road.
There's Cheney. We saw Cheney's got someone give that man some popcorn because he's got an exciting seat ahead to watch Ruskin and Peacock battle it out yet again. Ollie Peacock remains in 2nd for the time being. How about Scott McIntyre ahead? It's awfully close for the lead, but this is 2x2. Peacock versus Ruskin.
Oh,
Cheney versus Madema. Cheney. Oh, he's going to get that car stopped. Luckily, he does. That could have been ever so dangerous had he collected the drivers ahead side on.
Yeah, and that's an actual issue that's happened here in real life at Phillip Island. I know the Honda corner, it's always a big issue of if you get a driver forced off right, especially in the supercars, those big, heavy, powerful cars that really are a little bit under-braked. You get them out there on the gravel, and they will not get that car stopped before they get to the apex of the hairpin. No, that's happened a couple times. There's some big incidents at that corner throughout the years, and that was actually well held by Cheney there for him to be able not to basically just slide off the racetrack and into the cars in front of him. But the fight for P3, P4 still rages on, and right here, I think this is the fight we're trying to keep half an eye on, Johnny, to see if it closes up. But McIntyre just can't close enough in the slipstream. I think maybe the clean air really helping out Angus through all the tighter sectors of the track.
Yeah, more position changes here as the drivers hit the limit at around about 250 kilometers an hour, 245, just under. Now, how does that work in iRacing now, Randy? If Cheney's hit the gravel there, will he have a lot of rear-end damage or damage to the underside, I should say, of that car?
I think it kind of depends. Like, sometimes you can hit it and get away with it. Other times you can get hit it and it just completely destroys it. So it's going to be a bit of a lottery there. You keep an eye on some of these camera shots. You cycle into the background as see Stefan Ruskin locking up a right front tire there, going through the Honda hairpin. Now as they scream towards Siberia, the sort of awkward but fast left-hander. And I mean, that's really the defining characteristic of this track, isn't it? It's just these high-speed corners. It's not really too many off-camber corners, and everything kind of is banked with you, and it's just so fast. I mean, that hairpin Siberia at some tracks, that'd be like maybe a high second gear or low third gear corner, but you're basically just plopping the car in fourth, I think, and holding a ton of speed through there, and it's like that through this entire lap.
Yeah, I tried to, in the supercar here, testing that corner, I tried to widen to take a late exit. So you enter the corner late, so you get a better run out of the exit, if that makes sense. But then I realized that because of the camber of a corner and because the supercar is so hard to turn in, you actually need to hug the inside there because of the way that corner's laid out, camber-wise.
Yeah, I mean, you really abuse the fact that it's banked and it's working with you. We're right on board for better part of a lap here. We'll go with Jean-Michel Noyon at the moment. I think as I say that, there was some side-by-side behind, so we'll just do a variety of camera shots. I mean, this is in terms of the camber. This is about as flat as you get, I think, around the racetrack. That's the closest you really get to a corner not really working with you, but you can see it as you come up here towards the Honda hairpin through Stoner Corner. That's relatively easy. Even the apex of the Honda hairpin, it's not much, but there's a little bit of banking just helping you out, and it's definitely not falling away, but you can really see it here. Once you get turned in, it's a little bit of a bowl effect. You see these cars, they still actually run a little bit wide, Johnny, and I think you're right. They're probably running a slightly wider line in these cars due to all the downforce that they have than you would have typically in a big, heavy V8 supercar, where you're really not going to have much aero through that corner.
Can't wait for the new supercars to be released on iRacing, both the Holden and the Ford. Man, I see so many Ford Mustangs out in the road, Randy. I just came back from the beach, like I said earlier. Man, a lot of people own the Mustang GTs in Australia now. I think it's one of the best looking cars on the road.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. I mean, I'm definitely a Ford fan, anyone who knows me, so we'll keep an eye and we'll check back in with a fight for the race lead. But yeah, I mean, I know it's a bit of a bummer that they've sort of done away with the Falcon. It's something that I love. The Falcon is definitely a historic car to the Ford brand, and it's definitely a very relevant car. I always thought that it was unique that you guys having that in Australia, because it was a bit of a, it was a four-door performance sedan. It wasn't like a coupe, or it wasn't really like anything else. So on the one hand, I'm a little bit bummed that it's gone away, but on the other hand, I mean, I owned a Mustang at one point, and I'm very much a, like I said, fan of the blue oval. So it's good to see the Mustangs out there in full force. Unfortunately, I will say that they look a little bit odd in V8 supercar spec. They look a little squashed. They don't quite look right, but hopefully in years
from the side, you're saying.
Well, and even front on, yeah. I think the
front on, really?
I think the dimensions of the supercar don't fit with like the natural dimensions of the Mustang. So it looks like it almost looks like a supersized Aussie racing car with a Mustang body on it.
Well, let's recap this race as the drivers head through MG. It's Waddell leading. He's led every lap so far from pole position. But whether or not this will be a grand slam will be up to Scott McIntyre here on screen behind. How about Stefan Ruskin in the number 9, ready to attack McIntyre for the second position. These are your top 3 on screen. You can see 4th and 5th of Peacock and Medema. How about McIntyre versus Ruskin into 1?
Let's see, turn 1, always an interesting passing zone, because if you have the inside here, you'll be on the outside for turn 2, but well executed there by Ruskin there, Johnny, for him to just sweep on through and get his way up into that second spot. That's what you have to do through turn 1. You have to make sure you get that good run, and then you have to really commit through turn 1 to not let whoever you're fighting with have the inside for 2.
And I just said to myself, that looked really quick, Stefan Ruskin. I want to know who's got the fastest lap of the race. The timing screen says it above. Last lap round for Stefan Ruskin was purple. Brilliant lap by him. The slipstream obviously helped. Now he's going to hunt down Angus Waddell, the number 1 I-rated driver in this field, as they head through the hay shed. Almost halfway through this race already. It's going to be one of the shortest events we've had all season for Pro Mazda too. About just under 30 minutes.
Yeah, and we're not going to be expecting any pit stops, are we? I know you and I got caught out. God, it feels weird saying this. It was like 8 weeks ago now at Interlagos, wherever it's been, better part of 2-3 months. And then at Catalunya last week, I mean, that's a longer track than Interlagos was, and we only ran 1 less lap. So we knew going into that that we were expecting pit stops and fuel strategy. But here, yeah, this is going to be just a straight-up 20-lap sprint to the finish for these guys. And definitely different. I love the pit stop strategy, Johnny. I think most people know that about me, being an endurance racing fan. But there is something as well that's just raw and enjoyable about just here's the car, here's the starting grid, you got 20 laps, go for it. If you come down pit lane, well, that's too bad.
What a brilliant side of Phillip Island here. Now, I've been to the commentary booth here as we watch Waddell throw it into the corner here. A Honda hairpin. We ride on board with McIntyre, that TNT racing car. But I've been to the commentary booth here, Randy, and it's one of the best commentary booths in the world for sure. You can almost see the entirety of the racetrack. You can see the entire beach. I think the only part of the racetrack you can't see is here, the hay shed heading into Lukey Heights.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the difficult things, isn't it, when you actually broadcast in real life, is how much of the circuit can you really see. I know my one little bit of real life racing experience, we can only see about maybe half of the racetrack up at Thunderhill up in Northern California. But yeah, I mean, this actually, I mean, just looking at the racetrack, that doesn't surprise me. Like, there's plenty of elevation change, but there's not any serious elevation change, and it kind of rises up and is always kind of facing towards the infield. So it's almost like a bowl effect. It's actually, the fight's on for the lead.
Here's Ruskin up the inside of Waddell. Still alongside each other heading into the Southern Loop. Don't forget Scott McIntyre behind, who's ready to pounce on any of these two. No position changes that time round, Randy, but is it going to happen at Honda?
I don't know about Honda. If it does, I think it'll be for second. Does maybe Scott McIntyre slot it up the inside? No, because Ruskin goes slightly defensive, cuts the line off, and McIntyre didn't even really seem keen about it in the first place. So as we're about to be 10 laps down, 10 laps to go, I'm not going to lie, that little change and that little scrap caught me off guard, Johnny, because that's the first time we've seen Waddell really get challenged down that front straightaway, and he did very well. I mentioned a couple times that when you go down that front straightaway trying to pass for position, if you don't get it done on the inside of turn 1, your competition has the inside of turn 2, and that's exactly how Angus held on to the lead, as threw in towards MG once again.
How's this going to turn out heading into turn 1? Will it remain in these three positions respectively? Very wide was Ruskin, but very tight was Angus Waddell. He's already trying to break the toe through the final corner. Smart driving from Angus Waddell. Very alert. And there's the top 5 on screen. What a great shot it is with the top 5. So it's Waddell from Ruskin, from McIntyre, from Ollie Peacock after his rapid getaway, and then Ann Medema in 5th. So other notable names, Cheney remains in 7th. He's broken off from the train.
Oh,
Doesn't
look at
look
this
like he'll finish. Oh, this is that train I was talking about. Here's the second peloton of Noyon, Cheney, Erwin Vandenberg, Russ Addy. And you might as well count Martin Arnoldus, who's about to join the shot. And Arnoldus is just there in shot at the last moments. But here they head through to Honda Hairpin. A lock up there from the number 3 of Cheney.
Yeah, a little bit of a lockup, and he's going to lose a spot because of that to Mr. Erwin Vandenberg, I believe. So move Erwin up a spot. But yeah, you mentioned that sort of second group in Cheney. I was like, oh yeah, we'll shift the cameras over. And all I saw was a bent wing end plate and cars all over the place and working the way out. So Cheney able to work his way back up through this running order a little bit. John Michael Noyon there, and still tagging the back, like you said, is Roos Addy. But this is what I love about this racetrack, Johnny. These little feeder series cars, it just provides such good racing. I know in the bigger Formula cars, I know they liked it as well. This is of course, part of the World Championship Grand Prix series for a number of years. But, of course, those F1 cars, they're basically taking all these corners 20, 30 mile an hour quicker than these guys are. And especially they're screaming down the straights much quicker as well. I love the fact I love watching these little feeder series Formula cars. They just race so well at such a wide variety of racetracks.
Yeah, I'm going to have a New Year's resolution next year to watch more Formula 2 and Formula 3 at least. And if I can fit in anything else, I will. Pro Mazda maybe. What is it called now? Formula 2000?
I think so. I think Mazda still supplies engines, but they technically don't sponsor the series anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so they've always liked my tweets whenever I say I'm commentating the series, so I appreciate whoever
Mazda
manages that social account. Oh, the series, the Pro
I
Mazda
didn't know
series.
that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, we should start tweeting more, Randy. Get a like. Here's Waddell, Ruskin, McIntyre still remain in these positions, and we see on screen. Now, I want to focus on Ruskin here in the second position because coming out of MG, or at least coming out of turn 11, the next left-hander, he doesn't seem to use the slipstream of Waddell, who's very smart in terms of breaking the toe. Let's have a look. Goes for it this time, so it's smart from Ruskin, but it's not going to be enough of an advantage heading into turn 1, unless he's got some sort of party mode on that Pro Mazda.
Well, I wish he had some sort of party mode on that Pro Mazda, but yeah, he's not going to quite get there, is he, by the time he gets to the end of the front straightaway. He doesn't actually run out of gear either, so that's very well managed. I will say the other thing that's, for me, Johnny, talking about the fact that I'm definitely, I come from the GT side of things. It's always weird when I watch these sort of little cars buzz around here because, me coming from like GT1 and GT2, and hold on, we might have a fight for this going into Honda, so I'll hold my thought. But no, I don't think Ruskin's going to line up a move. But, coming from the likes of GT1 and GT2 and certainly GT3 and the supercars as well, it's always a talking point through turn 11 and turn 12 of can you keep your foot flat? And it's always like you're either right on the cusp of having to get the line actually, absolutely perfect and to be able to take especially that final corner flat out. In these cars, they have so little power and so much downforce, so you basically be anywhere on the racetrack and take that final sector flat.
Yeah. I really loved how Waddell threw it into Honda corner. He's driving that Pro Mazda like it's a go-kart at the moment. Trail braking is an art that's been missed in modern-day motor racing just because of how you have to maintain these tires. How about this through the final corner? A multitude of lines for your top 3. And now this is a great run for Stefan Ruskin for the lead.
Move might be on this time under the Melbourne, Australia sign down the front straightaway, but I think he's sort of managing the gap at the moment, Johnny. I think he wants to try to break away from McIntyre right now. He definitely had the overspeed. He should have been able to pull up alongside down that front straightaway, but it's like he stalled out. I don't know if they're all running out of gear. They shouldn't be running out of gear. I don't think the run into turn 1 is that high speed. I think he's just trying to manage the gap back to McIntyre and doesn't want to scrap with Waddell just yet. He wants to give himself a little breathing room to fight for that race lead and not then potentially lose seconds. Man, he's aggressive on the outside there trying to get the racing line.
Yeah, Waddell, he trail breaks into the corner. It looks like he's going to miss the corner every time, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, just sort of Waddell definitely goes into it a lot more aggressive, and he's doing so from a narrower line. Every time we're going into Honda, it seems like he's basically in the middle of the racetrack entering that corner as opposed to out there completely on the edge on the left-hand side of the racetrack. So definitely very difficult, and he's definitely managing the grip extremely well.
See, straight away now I'm thinking if I'm Stefan Ruskin, it's hard to dive up the inside now because Waddell's going to be trail braking, right? You could cause an incident. So if you can force Waddell to a tighter line on the inside as we watch the number 4 and number 2 here of Peacock versus McIntyre for third, you never know if Roos can make the move. I think he's going to have to do it around the outside for sure. There is Ollie Peacock in the third. The lead will remain unchanged. Tell you what, they're still alongside each other are McIntyre and Peacock. McIntyre is going to try and stick it around the outside, and he maintains the third position through the southern loop. Brilliant racing.
There could be a cutback here, but do these cars have the grip for Peacock? I can't tell if he's alongside. Indeed, he is. Great move from Ollie Peacock off of turn 1 and turn 2 to get it up the inside. He had that third spot, lost it, and then wrestled it back, but into Honda the 2. McIntyre isn't done yet. Round the outside, Ollie Peacock will have the momentum again into Siberia. Side by side through the first 4 corners of the lap, and they're going to make it 5. As up the inside goes Ollie Peacock, and I don't think they're done yet. This will continue into MG.
Certainly will. McIntyre had all the momentum around the outside, but Peacock, like we said, Siberia has that camber on the inside, so he got the best drive possible. And he'll snatch that third position finally heading into Lukey Heights. But McIntyre will pounce back on this main straight. Let's focus back on Waddell versus Ruskin. Ruskin is as close as he's ever been now to Angus Waddell for the lead. And I don't know if he's hanging back. I wouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's just lacking a bit of pace here. But if he's going to get the move done, Randy, it needs to be early.
Yeah, and especially now with McIntyre and Peacock, they just got done scrapping for that third spot. This is where his window opens up, and you're right. I don't know if he's lifting or not.
He doesn't have straight line speed.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the speed.
Yeah, I think you might be right. He might be running a little bit more aero on that car, or flat out may have gotten the gearing wrong. And what a time to start figuring that out with 5 laps left to go. By the way, in the background, they're not done scrapping yet. McIntyre trying to make it stick around the outside. This time in towards Honda. It'll be the inside towards Honda, rather. And, well, we saw this last lap. And he's going to have it, I think, done a lot more cleanly this time.
And then Medema sitting patiently and comfortably. Whoa, Ollie Peacock. He thought about going to the inside. He went to the outside. He's having a trip to the beach. And Ollie Peacock brings some sunscreen. Bring some bathers, mate, because that's not where you want to be for sure.
Yeah, make sure to wear something that's cut resistant as well. We saw how sharp those beaches are, but fight for third and fourth between Medema and McIntyre now, excuse me, was going to be interesting to watch. But this fight as well is going to be, I'm keen on keeping an eye on. 4 laps to go when we get to start finish. Can the 9 do anything on the 1? This time off this final corner, he pulls back into the slipstream. We've seen it a couple times be more patient. This is about the best run he's had, Johnny, but still he's sort of stalling out about 2/3 of the way down the straight.
He doesn't have the speed. I think it's race over for Stefan Ruskin. Whoa, Waddell disappeared off screen for a second. Technical issue for Angus Waddell. Oh, man. I always remember, do you remember the Spanish Grand Prix with Mika Hakkinen in like 2000?
Yeah, I remember him having connection issues.
Just car blew up on the final lap.
Yeah. Let's hope that's oh no. Let's pray that that's not the case for Mr. Angus Waddell here. But what do you reckon the problem is for Ruskin, Johnny? Do you think he's just got the gearing wrong? Because it seems like it's not an aero issue. He sort of pulls up in the slipstream and kind of starts pulling those car links the way you would expect, and then it just sort of stops. But I don't think it's an aero issue. I've never seen an aero issue kind of display like that. Usually if you know a car is running too much aero and that's why they can't suck up to the car behind, they never ever seem to get that overspeed. The 9 sort of starts, you know, the initial run down the straight's really good, but it's sort of, I mean, around halfway down the starting grid, it's like he stalls out.
So it could either be damage, don't forget, very minor damage, or Scott McIntyre behind is matching Stefan Ruskin's straight line speed. Now I know with the connection issues that Waddell's having, it could affect Ruskin's draft heading into this main straight. But see, it's the second part of the straight that Waddell just seems to... it's like he actually pulls away even more on the second part of the straight. But these are serious connection issues which will distract Stefan Ruskin for sure.
Yeah, and they're distracting us as well. So hopefully Angus doesn't fall victim to something there. What's interesting is that his ping is actually fine to the server. So... that's really strange, but regardless, Scott McIntyre and Medema, I'm going to check back in with this fight, and, well, this might be a timely time to do it, as Jean-Michael Noyon wants to set up an outside move in Honda.
2 by 2 they are heading into Honda. I don't know who's going to end up where at the exit here. There's the 3 and 8 of Cheney versus Noyon. Noyon forms up behind, and that's just ahead there of Erwin Vandenberg, and it's Ross Addy at the rear end of this train in the number 12. So... brilliant scrap here to win this race as they head through the hay shed.
Yeah, these guys are, I mean, we've been keeping such a close eye on the leaders because they're so close. We've missed out on the bulk of this fight. These guys have been having a hell of a time back here in the mid-pack. I think representing basically 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th overall. As let's see, they'll work their way through this end of the lap. And, well, this part of the racetrack really does single file itself out, doesn't it? But this is where things get crazy. We'll check in with your race leaders down the front straightaway. They've stretched themselves back out as they work in towards turn 1, but with coming to 2 to go, this pack's about to get feisty into 1.
Where's Erwin Vandenberg in a slot? He's got some great straight line speed. He can't really go 3 wide. There's no gap, so he has to back out of it, does Erwin Vandenberg. How about Ross Addy behind? Oh, goodness, Ross Addy had a peek up the inside of the southern loop. You got to hug the inside of the southern loop. Almost a bit of contact between himself and Vandenberg. And wow, these two just so close to each other right now as we watch Noyon versus Cheney yet again. Cheney has the Angus Waddell line up the inside, but Noyon brilliant on the brakes. Let's see how he if he can maintain this into Siberia. No, Noyon will have to fall behind.
Yeah, timing didn't really work out for that one, did it? For those guys to be side by side through Siberia. We'll check back in once again on your race leaders, but that gap had opened up to about the largest between first and second has been in a while, at about half of a second. So let's see. It seems like the 9 may have reeled in some time, but it's hard to say with the issues that Angus Waddell is having. So we'll just keep an eye on this fight a little bit. Oh, something's happened to Cheney.
Cheney's had a spin or a moment. definitely through. That was MG. So that's the downhill braking zone. Here's the replay.
Let's see, through the left, up and over the hill. He just lost it to the crest, didn't he, and got onto the grass.
Yeah, no contact for sure. Didn't see any contact at all for Andrea Cini. So unfortunately for him, the number 3 driver who started from 3rd, he's the 3rd highest I-rated driver, and he's going to be nowhere near the top 8. So 9th at best here. McIntyre's had a spin. Another spin ahead of McIntyre. What's going on here? And Medema's had a spin. Bizarre finish to this event. This is the final lap, don't forget. Here's an insane train heading to Honda Corner. We'll bring you replays of this by the end of the race for sure. But here's a battle. It looks like that's Jean-Michel Noyon on screen. Noyon's on the podium now with that 3rd position.
He started this lap in the 6th spot, and he now finds himself 3rd with 2 people having issues in front of him. We'll try to figure out what happened. No idea of if there was issues with other drivers. Ollie Peacock's back there. I don't think he's had Medema. I think he's... maybe there was a 3-car incident between McIntyre, Medema, and Peacock. They weren't that close, but... I don't know, that's really odd, but regardless, your race leaders, Johnny, they're heading into the final sector, and Waddell doesn't seem to be having connection issues anymore, as he's going to be seeing the checkered off the final corner.
Angus Waddell wins from Phillip Island, and you'll take a Grand Slam with that after leading every lap of this race. Now, he didn't win the entire race, but he led every lap at the start-finish line, and what a brilliant victory it is for Angus Waddell, who drove very well. Stefan Ruskin behind, had some good pace, but not the straight line speed to make it past his rival of Angus Waddell. They both started on the front row, don't forget, in this race. And Stefan Ruskin, one of the best results I've ever seen from Stefan himself in Pro Mazda. And how about Jean-Michel Noyon on the podium at the end of the day in 3rd? Oh, man. For Ross Addy and Erwin Vandenberg, they started 10th and 11th. And they're in the top 5. I can't wait to see what happened on the final lap. Here are is that the replay? No, that's
yeah. That was the
like
replay. That was the replay.
Oh.
So I went on board with Ollie. I wanted to see what happened to Ollie because the incident kind of happened ahead of him. This is between the 5 and the 2. So this is McIntyre and Medema. They got into that incident, and Medema being very aggressive up the inside. And I'm not sure what actually befell Peacock, if I'm entirely honest. I honestly think Peacock saw the yellows. And I think he got scared. I want to watch this again because he's coming in. Yeah, the incident is going to be happening ahead of him about now. That yellow flag's going to be flashing in the corner of his screen.
No, you can't go the outside there. You can't go the outside of the Southern Loop, Randy, because it's off camber, that corner. So in the V8 Supercar here, which is the most experienced car around this circuit, you hug the inside in the braking zone. You hug the inside through the apex. It's a very weird line. If you take the outside through there, you do what Ollie Peacock did. You'll spin off into the gravel. Yeah,
and you really have to check up. I think what Ollie did there is he just flat out overcooked it for himself. So we'll watch on board with Ann Medema here. This is the actual incident that I think caused the whole thing. You see he's going to be very aggressive up the inside. McIntyre is clear. But then again, like you said, Johnny, McIntyre is on the outside there, and I think if you're Medema, you're almost always going to go for that window if McIntyre is going to present it that much. But crazy. We'll watch actually on board from John Michael Noyon's perspective. We'll rewind the cameras actually back a little bit further because this is going to be a fun kind of final lap and a half, I think, watching on board with Noyon.
This is exciting. So whilst this is occurring, we're going to head through the final corner with Noyon. Andrea Cini will be confirmed champion, I'm pretty sure. I don't want to call it yet, but unofficially for the moment, we can say he's champion. Scott McIntyre in 2nd. With this race, because Gabriel Perez missed the split by a minute, he was in the spectator chat. He reckons that Ann Medema will take that 3rd position in the championship away from him, but let's see what happened to the Frenchman here.
Yeah, this is going to be the point where you're like, man, I'm having a mediocre race. Oh, my Lord, God. I'm on the podium.
It's like the beginning to a public lobby race.
Yeah, that's really what it was.
Like, oh, I started last. Oh, I'm in 1st. What's going on? Brilliant stuff for Noyon. And this is still the replay here. This is the final lap. So we were riding on board with him, and look at all the drivers behind.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see how they all stacked up as a result of that. I mean, John was really the beneficiary. They end up finishing how they run, so I don't think any other craziness ends up happening. Well, actually, in the background, McIntyre had another little issue. That car may have broken when he got hit. and he ended up on the gravel. But yeah, I mean, that was for a race that was a little bit processional in some moments, Johnny, but definitely picked up at the end. That was about as dramatic of a finish as I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, most certainly. I can't wait to watch Pro Mazda yet again next season. I'm trying to. Yeah, let's have a look at the race results, and then we'll talk a little bit more to wrap up the season. So Angus Waddell with victory yet again. There's a reason why he's the highest I-rated driver in this field. Stefan Ruskin behind, like we said, should have won this race had he had the straight line speed, but just unfortunately couldn't get past the pole sitter of Waddell, who takes a grand slam. For Noyon, he just somehow finds himself onto unexpected podiums, but he deserved it. The Frenchman ends up in third, and look how close the rest of the drivers were behind when you look at the gaps of Russ Addy, Erwin Vandenberg. Brilliant race from those two. They started in 11th and 10th respectively. For Ann Medema with that last lap incident, still claims 6th and 3rd in the championship for Ann Medema. Andrea Cini will be champion for Season 4 in 2019. We'll confirm it soon. Scott McIntyre will claim 2nd in the championship. Brilliant stuff from him too. Fabio Berchtold rounds out the top 10, and it's Martin Arnoldus in the second page ahead of Chris Roberts and Marcin and Dula, who rounds out our 13-car top split. This was a splitted race, so we had 26 drivers, 27 actually I should say, in 2 splits. So that's how that all worked out. Now, Randy, before we wrap up, I tried to bring in Martin Arnoldus, but I think he might be away, so no interview with Martin Arnoldus for this race. But for us, we don't know what we're broadcasting yet for Pro Mazda next season, but I always enjoy these races, and it's always thrilling to do them with yourself.
Yeah, they're very often some of the most entertaining broadcasts that we do. They tend to, like I said, the cars kind of keep themselves packed up, and they race really well at such a variety of racetracks, and I think that's what's so fun about these. You know, you take like a Formula One car around some of the tracks that these guys run at, and that they'll fight side by side on, and then the F1 cars will be single file because they're just so darn fast. But yeah, I mean, it's a great championship. I love the fact that we do it every year, and hopefully we can do it going into next year. Probably have another solid half the season at least.
Yeah, it's been a few years of me doing Pro Mazda, and I've always enjoyed it, but it's time to say goodbye for technically 2019 for this season. We covered the Laguna Seca race, don't forget, for round 1. Brands Hatch, Interlagos, covered Zandvoort a few weeks ago, and of course Barcelona last week for the first time with this car track combo, and then Phillip Island today for week 12. From myself, Jonathan Simon, from Randolph Cheneth alongside me, and our entire RaceSpotTV crew behind the scenes, we hope you enjoyed this presentation on our associated platforms. Thanks to everyone who joined us for each race this season. It's been a very nice, tight-knit community, has Pro Mazda, and it's always been some good racing. Our winner today, Angus Waddell, our champion, Andrea Cini, will say goodbye for Season 4, 2019. And we'll say so long from Phillip Island. Goodbye from us.